I have a Polish friend who is a sound engineer, and I have a check 1 2. A check 1 2. Check 1 2. Hello and welcome back to Articulate with Steve McJones. And I figured, a sound engineer, producer type joke to just kick off this episode would be pretty good for, because we got River Chalker on today. River Chalker, the man, the legend, the future ESPN Fox Sports broadcaster. River's a cool guy. I met him at the Ohio University Indian Conference Center, and this man has the drive, dude. Like, he works so much, and you can tell, like, how much passion he has for, just broadcasting in general through this, and how much he loves it, and does it in depth, and, he actually knows his stuff now, based off the internship he talked about. Really, really cool guy, and this is a very informational episode. I learned a lot about the broadcasting network, and of course I want to go into entertainment, so it may not be the side of entertainment I'm looking to go into, but it definitely shows a little bit about how things run back there, which is really interesting. So I hope you find it as informational and interesting as I did, and enjoy. Yeah, so you have to record stuff for classes?
Yeah, well, like my capstone class, we've had to put together like 3 video, like basically like 2-minute stories that you'd like see on the news almost, where it's like, you'll have your anchor and then it'll go to a reporter, but it's like a video story, so it's like a TV story basically, but then we've had 3 radio stories that accompany each of the TV stories. Yeah. And obviously I'm already like into that, so that's what I've basically done too. But it's basically the same thing I do every day, but it's just I actually have to script it. But we already have the TV script, so it's kind of just like condensing that a little. Maybe I'll change it around a little bit, but
that's like your homework?
Yeah.
That's interesting. So everybody, River Chalker, everybody, welcome to the podcast.
Yep.
So what is your major technically?
I am technically a journalism, news and information major, but that's kind of interesting because there's a different track of my major that's broadcast, which is kind of what I ended up going towards anyway. But at that point, it was kind of too late to change. It's the same major, but there's still different classes and stuff. So
right.
I'm sure, as you don't want to spend an extra 2 years switching your major. So
yeah, no, I've known people that
news and info technically, but what I'm actually going into is more on the broadcasting side, but journalism is my major.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's interesting. So yeah, that kind of makes sense then, going into record in the studio, just because that equipment is just so much better. We're just talking about how much of a difference sound quality can actually make.
Yeah, it's huge. They have mics and stuff and little stuff you can plug into your phone to take home and record, but even with a high quality mic, if you're not in the right space for the sound, it's a lot different. So that's definitely one thing I've noticed, that how those sounds work, and you'll get mic pops or something if you're not actually in a studio. Sometimes, depending on how good the mic is,
right?
It's not the best quality of mic, I don't think, that they let people check out. But either way, even I tried it in my closet, which was super small, because I thought maybe the sound quality would be better, and it's a little better, but there's still a huge difference.
Speaking of that, I'm gonna turn this fan off actually.
Versus being in the studio versus say trying to record something at home. So
I used to over the summer I moved into this 3-month lease in this little duplex with some other people. and like it was two guys that I didn't know. They're really cool. They're actually on the podcast.
Oh, nice.
Lawson and Sonam, really cool guys, but I didn't know them at first, and I still was doing the podcast. So I would go like in the closet and like try to like hang up a blanket to stop some of the sound, and I'd just be like, so here I am recording in a closet.
Well, yeah, and I have a dog and a cat, and you know my girlfriend lives with me, so it's kind of
oh yeah, true.
Unless I wait maybe until like midnight where everyone is sleeping, I'm always gonna get some type of sound that I don't want. And
but the joke was, I was like, but listen, I'm not in the closet like that. I'm not like that. But yeah, no, I mean, but I also feel like getting into the studio is a different, like we were talking about earlier, it's a different headspace a little bit.
It's a lot easier for me to work in the studio for sure. I mean, it's almost like being in an office, I guess.
Or like a library.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, you know you're in there to do stuff for radio and audio, so it's a good environment, I guess, for doing stuff like that, which is why, yeah, I use that.
Is that where your internship is, too? Or is your internship...
I was interning there, so I started interning in January, I think it was. Yeah, the beginning of last winter semester. And at first I was just doing really basic stuff, kind of just shadowing different people and just kind of learning the basics of production and being on air, stuff like that.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so when I first started, I was just doing a lot of board ops, which is basically on-air production, and it seems a lot more complicated than it is. I mean, there's a lot of attention to detail that goes in it.
Board operations? Is that what
yeah, board operations. So basically, say we had two people covering a high school basketball game. So they're on the spot. They're at the game.
Okay.
And their feed is playing through our station.
Sure.
But then if they cut out to a commercial break, I have to take their audio off and then turn up the commercials to play. Yeah. But also you're responsible for programming the commercials and making sure with how we did it is they would say over, you know, you're on like a call with them, but they would say over the mic, hey, 2 minutes. So usually I would have, 4 or 5 minutes of commercials programmed in, and, the station will give you what commercials, because certain commercials are supposed to air for the sports, and then other, certain companies want to purchase that ad time for those specific programs, especially the sports, because that tends to be the most listened to programming, especially the local stuff, because it's a local station, obviously. It's not a syndicated.
But it's all live, though?
Or anything. Yeah, so
that sounds kind of exciting.
The high school basketball and stuff they do, that's pretty much the most popular. But yeah, so you're programming in commercials, basically just making sure that, if your broadcasters don't think that they're on air, you want to make sure their mic is turned down. So, if they're talking amongst themselves, it doesn't come out through the air.
Yeah.
And you're playing commercials, and then, you'll probably have a station ID in there. So it's, like I said, a lot of attention to detail, because it's usually, with the sports, it kind of can vary a little bit, because, sometimes a commercial break might take a little longer to get to. They're not going to just stop the game in the middle to say, oh, they need to go to commercial. You know what I mean? But it's all scheduled out pretty much to a T. Like, this is when you need to play these commercials. These are the commercials to choose from. This is how long. So they would say, 2-minute break, and then maybe I would have 2 1-minute commercials, or maybe 4 30-second commercials, or 3 30-second commercials with a station ID and a PSA. So, but that was cool because it kind of taught me the basics, but also...
Were you on air at all for that, or was that you?
No, I wasn't on air for that. So that's basically just behind the scenes. I say production, but it's not production like most people would think, because it's like live producing, basically. Right. So you're just running the soundboard, really, is the main thing, but you also learn how to program in the sound bites, which are the ads, or your PSA or your station ID. And we have a specific program for that, but it's not that complicated, but
I always wondered what producers did.
it definitely takes a while to get the hang of it. And it's really easy to mess up, especially if you're live. If you forget to click the stop, you might have a commercial keep playing over your announcers, and I mean it's simple stuff, easy mistakes to make, and they understand. It wasn't one of those internships where, you know, if I messed up it was like terrible and, you know, I was gonna get in trouble, like they knew.
Right.
But
well, I mean, that's part of learning, is making mistakes.
yeah,
like that.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I started with that, and then they do a hourly sports show every day, The Sports Fan, and when I was still interning, I did a couple appearances on that. There's already a host in place and whatnot, but they let me jump in for a couple episodes, so that was actually the first time I got on air.
And then that's when you felt it, right? The spark. The
connection. The fire burning, the passion.
What were those first few things about?
Oh gosh, it was back in February. I think it was right around the Super Bowl, so, you know, little Super Bowl preview and stuff like that. And I'm a big sports guy. I'm doing news now, but I want to go into sports, so that's what that's I figure if I can get paid to watch and talk about sports, which is what I do with my free time anyway.
Right.
That's pretty cool. So
that's definitely exciting.
The content pretty comfortable with, and I didn't feel like I was not knowledgeable enough or whatever to be on, but it was a little weird being on air for the first time. It's kind of just a weird thing because it's not like TV where there's a camera on you, so you're still kind of by yourself. Or I was with two other people, I think, that were hosting the show, but you still know that people are listening to you. So it's kind of a weird thing at first, but I've always been pretty comfortable talking in general. Like I'm pretty much a fairly talkative person. So
they should call you River Talker.
Yeah.
sorry, that's dumb.
I've actually never heard that one. I've heard a lot of puns with my name, usually my first name, but I've never heard that one.
Yeah,
so good on you for coming up with something original.
And we got it on recording, so that's nice.
So, but basically, once you start doing it, it's the best thing you can do is not try to play to the audience. Really, just sound like you normally would sound,
like
and talk conversation, especially for a show like that. I mean, certain programs, you know, it's going to be a little different, but something like that, really.
Is that something you have to learn, like in your classes? Like, do you have like a tone class or anything? Like a speech?
There is a radio and broadcast class, but that was more about kind of the scripting and like the production side and the shooting. We didn't really go a lot into how you should sound. That I've researched it a lot personally, just because when I first started, you know, there is still some growing pains there, and it just depends on the station too. So like an NPR station, they're looking for conversational, but also I tend to have a fairly loud voice, so if you're on a station like that, what they said is, which is what I did for my class, it's an WOUB is what runs the story, so it's an NPR affiliate, and they recommended pretending like you're telling the story to a stuffed animal or something like that.
Really? That's interesting.
So it's a much more subdued tone. So conversational is obviously the number one thing, but then for, you know, the Power 105 news that I do, it's a music station, so it's all kind of upbeat, and you know the DJs are
you a DJ?
Excitable.
River Chalk.
Yeah, I'm not a DJ, but you know you kind of want to play off what I don't want my newscast to sound completely different from how everything else is. So for that, I use a little bit deeper of a voice and kind of a more exciting, I guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like kind of tone. Yeah, you're just trying to get like upbeat.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm River Chalker, not like this is River Chalker. You know what I mean? Like so, it kind of varies from what station or channel, if you will, that you're doing. But I've researched a lot, and especially basically for anything, you just want the listener to feel like they could be in the same room as you.
Sure.
And hearing you say it, you know what I mean? That, I guess it tends to make you seem more relatable to the audience, and
course.
also tends to sound better and be easier on the ears. So that's not really something we went over, like I said, in detail in my classes too much, but it's definitely something that I've realized is important as I've started being on air a lot more.
But yeah, well, that's definitely something. That's pretty cool. That, I mean, like that you learned outside of your classes. That's what I'm saying. I feel like there's so many things that could be taught. I don't know. This is a different tangent, but it's cool that you were able to realize like something that you needed to learn, and then you like went and did your own research on it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I feel like that's the case with pretty much any class. Not that like, you know, a lot of the skills I've learned definitely do translate and have been helpful, but it's almost impossible to learn some of the stuff until you're actually doing it.
Yeah, for sure.
Even, you know, through my last couple months of actually being news director and being on the air and stuff, even it's almost a daily basis where I think of, or something else comes up, or there'll be a problem that arises, and, you know, you have to shift and adapt, and it's not really the professor's fault, but you can't really teach that.
It's just like fast-paced environment, kind of.
Exactly.
Like we were talking about. So like serving a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, it's a lot of it thinking on your feet and being able to adapt. I mean, I think that's a transferable skill in terms of almost any industry. That's a good thing to be able to do. So yeah, I've, you know, been a server for 8-9 years now, and a lot of it's crazy because a lot of those skills actually do translate to my other jobs, and you wouldn't think of it like that. And, you know, it's not the most highly skilled and sophisticated position, but a lot of the stuff you do actually does transfer into other areas of.
That's awesome. So maybe I could be a good newscaster after serving for so long.
You could try it.
Yeah. Well, so walk us through like a daily basis type thing for that newscaster position, because that does kind of sound. What's the title technically? It sounds kind of intense.
So technically I'm the news director. I'll just go back a little bit. So I was doing that interning, basically doing the board opping and stuff, and I got on air a couple times just to kind of get my feet wet, so that was cool. The pandemic hit in March, and then I didn't do anything after that because all high school sports were canceled and everything, so that was usually where they needed people doing the board ops, so kind of took a hiatus until late July, when I was planning on coming back anyway in an intern capacity doing some of the same stuff, but they had the guy that was the news director before me, Bob Bayette, he was the news director there for, I want to say, upwards of 30 years or close to it. So a long time. He was very
knowledgeable.
Yeah, I mean,
experienced.
I think he was getting older. I think he was in his 70s, and his health, that's why he ended up having to retire, was like from some health problems. So I think in the last couple years, it kind of, the quality started diminishing a little bit. But I mean, if you look at his overall body of work, he was really talented and good at what he did, obviously, if you can.
So it must have been cool to
be in that industry. Yeah, but basically they were going to call me back for the internship, and the owner called me one day and said, hey, how would you feel about doing news? And I really just wanted to get back to it, and, you know, being an intern, I don't know about everyone, but I'm basically the type of person that's like, yeah, I mean, I'll try it, you know, like, cool, sounds fun, you know, maybe I'll learn something cool. And then we were talking about that, and then said, okay, well, we might want to look into you maybe doing news interning, blah, blah, blah. It's cool, sounds good. And then we picked a time to meet, and then I think it was an hour later that he called me back and basically said, hey, our news director just had to resign, so do you want to take over as the news director? And even at the time, I wasn't even trained yet.
Right.
Anything. So it was kind of a out of the blue thing, kind of shocking, but
no, that's like a smack.
I was, but I was like, like that sounds cool, let's do it, sure. And he said, you're gonna be working 5 to 9 almost every day, and that's like your just base hours. You probably would do more stuff, and I mean, for most people, that would be like instantly kind of like, I don't know if I can do that. But at the time, I was actually working at UPS, which was also very, very early in the morning. So that was, I think, 4 to like 9 a.m. So I was kind of already used to that. So
UPS jobs suck.
Yeah, it was good money, but
it's always good money, but that's how they bring you in.
Yeah, I don't think it was. Looking back, I'm glad that I left a little bit of money on the table to do the other thing. But anyway, so I actually didn't really have a problem with that. I mean, it's probably not my ideal hours still, but so yeah, I accepted the position, and then I trained with Bob for 1 week. Is all 5 days, and then that next Monday, I was the new news director.
What were you thinking during the training? Where you're like, "Damn, this is a lot." I mean, you were probably
it was a lot, man. I mean, it really was. It was pretty overwhelming. I'm not gonna lie. And especially because it was all new, and I was very transparent with them. I said, I was like, "Yeah, I mean, I can do it, but I don't have any experience." Like, I wasn't like, "Oh yeah, I've done," like, they knew. I was like, I don't know. I don't have any experience. Like, I'll do it, I'll work hard, but you gotta accept some mistakes.
You're definitely gonna make.
You're getting what you're gonna get, basically. At least at first.
That was kind of me at the end, like when the managers left, and I'm like, well, I've never been a manager before, and this is supposed to be an internship for me, but like, I mean, I'm gonna try.
Exactly,
I'll try.
exactly. It was like, cool, yeah, we'll give it a shot. So I was training.
And sometimes that's almost better because people don't like judge you as harshly because they know that you don't have anything.
I think that definitely helped me though. Almost it for one made me learn a lot faster and kind of really learn on my feet. Like I said, as I was going, almost every day, my first couple weeks, I was learning something new, picking up on this, that. But I do think it helped me just kind of get a feel for where I wanted to go without necessarily someone looking over me and saying, this is what you need to do.
Right.
I basically had the freedom to do whatever, but luckily Bob had a very good system in place that he'd been using for a really long time. So I was able to keep a lot of the stuff he did that I thought was good and that had been working. I didn't want to come in and being new at the thing. I wasn't going to come in and say, we're going to completely switch it up. Like, there was most of the stuff I was like, okay, we'll start with this, and I have switched things a little bit here and there as I've been going on, but it was nice that he had a very set system that he had been using for a long time that he obviously did a good job with. So that was nice that I kind of walked into that and was able to use a lot of what he did. But now I'm wanting to kind of make it more of my own. So at first it was kind of like, don't mess it up. Like,
show, kind of, you just kind
of like, let's just keep it going and try our best.
Yeah.
Because I had no idea. I'd never done it. But now I'm kind of, as I've been getting more comfortable with it, have been getting more ideas and kind of trying to go outside the box in terms of how I want it to be. And I still don't think...
This is you, like, reaping the benefits a little bit of, like, what you were given. Like, at first you had to learn all that stuff.
Yeah.
And, like, take on all those responsibilities and, like you said, kind of just keep it going as it was. But, understanding that, like, and at this point now you're, like, kind of more confident in all those responsibilities.
Yeah, I mean... Even still, I mean, I've been doing it for about 4 months, so it's been a little while. I mean, it's still new, I'd say, in the grand scheme of of things.
I think the like 3 to 4 month period is like a solid, like that's when you're like settling into the job a little bit.
Right, yeah. So, I mean, I still feel like I'm getting more comfortable in what it is I'm doing. And I'm actually looking into hiring it. So, basically, I needed a couple more hours for my internship still when I was the news director. Which usually that's not an intern position, but they were nice enough to let me do that and still pay me while giving me my internship hours because I needed that through the school. So that was like the main thing. So my internship hours are all done. So I'm not actually an intern anymore. I'm just an actual employee.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, I'm the news director. I already was, but I felt like kind of when I was still interning, it was kind of like
they were treating
an interim thing in a way, you know. But now it's not an internship anymore. It's an actual job, which is good because I can have on my resume that I did intern here, but also it's not just the internship. Like they actually hired me on, you know, for this position, which I feel like is a good thing for any employer looking to hire you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they knew you already.
Yeah, but I still think it looks good that
yeah.
if you can actually get a job from your internship, you know,
that means you did a good job during
right,
the
they liked you.
Yeah.
You had a good attitude. You worked hard, blah, blah, blah. But I do think... So that's nice. So I think the last couple months I've been an actual, like, paid, fully employee of the radio station.
Full-time?
Not full-time. I work about 25 hours a week. I also work at the OUN, so...
Yeah.
I can't really work that much more there. I'm already working almost 45 hours a week, and I'm trying to graduate in 2 weeks. So hopefully after I graduate, maybe I'll be able to start doing some more stuff. And if I can get paid a little more there, maybe I can scale back at the OUN. But I still have bills to pay regardless. Right. So, but yeah, my average day... As of now, I come in I wake up at 4:30.
Oof, I can't.
I have my coffee already ready to go the night before. It's set on the timer, so it's ready for me when I wake up.
That's awesome.
I'll have a little breakfast. I usually do oatmeal, instant oatmeal. It's a nice.
It's cheap. It's delicious.
Cheap, easy, good.
Maple brown sugar. Yeah.
Maybe a banana. I like that and the peaches and cream. Those are my two
go-tos.
The
worst
you don't like that?
No, peaches and cream.
All right, the apple cinnamon too.
All right, apple cinnamon's fine. I'll admit.
So I'll usually do that banana. Get into the radio station. I try being there about 5, but it is nice being the news director because if I'm late, I'm basically beholden to myself. So, But usually I'm there pretty much standard, 5 o'clock.
You don't clock in or anything, though?
No, I don't clock in. I just basically write down my hours at the end of the pay period and
Interesting.
turn it in. So it's kind of an honor system, I guess, with me. I mean, I would not fabricate my hours, and it would be very easy to tell if I did anyway.
Right.
But
it's pretty consistent.
It's a trustworthy thing. So, but yeah, I come in, and then I start gathering my stories for the day, basically. So I have 3 newscasts, or it's actually 6, but there's 2 different stations that are sister stations that are owned by the same station. It's in the same building. So I'll do one at 6:30, one at 7:30, one at 8:30 for the AM station, and then I'll do one at 6:50, 7:50, and 8:50 for the FM station. But usually my AM and FM for each hour will be the same stories because no one's listening to 2 different stations at once, or if they are, I don't know what to tell you. But anyway.
Sorry for doing the same thing.
So basically I have 3 newscast slots to cover. And how I've started doing it is I start off with a reader story, which is... I might pull that from the AP Wire, which is, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's like news thing, I guess, that different publications and journalists and stuff from around the world, around the country, will post little briefs to The Wire, which is online, and you can...
I've heard of it, I think.
Basically, it gives you all your stories in one place, but it's a very condensed format, which is good because, you know, for radio, even a reader story should usually be no longer than a minute. So you're looking at, you know, a paragraph, maybe two. So I'll get it from that. And then Bob didn't do a lot of this, but I started pulling a lot of those stories from local outlets. So I'll go on the Athens News, Athens Messenger, the Post.
Oh, nice.
And then I take those online stories, which obviously is for print, and then what I have to do is condense them, change them, blah, 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 in order to basically become a radio script. Right. So I usually try to I read 2 of those per newscast. So I usually need at least 6 of those stories. And then we also have an affiliate, which is the Ohio News Network. And what they do is they have your scripts all ready for you, and they provide sound bites. So it'll sound something like the Athens City Council announced yesterday that the Halloween block party has been canceled for the 2020 year. Right. Here is Karina Nova with the story. So the anchor part is my intro, and then they on their website provide that soundbite, which is actually a different reporter that is reporting the rest of it. So for those, I take the intro, put that on my script, and then I will take the soundbite and number it so I know what I'm doing as far... It's kind of complicated, but basically I have to put their sound bites that they have online into our system. Sure. So the DJ can play it, or when I'm on AM, I can play that correct sound bite. So I'll name it, and then, you know, to add it, I have to go in the other studio, the production studio, turn on my right dials and stuff so it's ready to record, click it, record the soundbite into our system, stop it, rename it, everything, and then when it's time for my newscast, I take whatever I named it. It's usually, we go off numbers, so it's just easy to keep everything, and then I put in the number, and then that way I'll read my anchor intro, and then the reporter will come in. Yeah. So, and then usually I try to get about...
So the reporter isn't actually live, and you're lying
to
people.
They're not live. The reporters aren't. Those are all pre-recorded, but I am producing it live. And all my anchor stuff is live, and the reader stuff is live as well. So I do that. That's the production stuff, basically gathering the stories, and I usually try to get at least 15 of those, because I do 7-ish stories per newscast. Yeah. So they're all around 4 to 5 minutes, give or take. Sometimes they can run over. Sometimes it might be shorter, just depending. Sometimes the sound bites are going to be 30 seconds. Sometimes they'll be 20. So it varies a little bit, but I try to stay in that area. And then the main part is gathering the stories and doing the scripts. You need to read over your scripts before you read them on air. That's a mistake I made a couple times. Not that anything is bad, but there is some wording or certain spellings and stuff that doesn't necessarily look right on the paper that you almost need to read first, and then you
someone just like wrote it out real quick, and
then you can have it in the, or even sometimes alliteration, like if there's like 3 words that sound similar or start with the same letter that you have to read in I can't think of the word, in order basically, that you have to read that are all together. Sometimes that kind of messes with you when you're reading, but this is once again all stuff that you can't really know until you do it. So there's just certain things, certain wordings can sound weird or like feel weird coming out of your mouth when you're reading it. So you might want to say, oh, I don't like how that sounds. I'm going to go back and edit it. So I always read my scripts over at least once before. So that's all of the prep stuff pretty much, is gathering my stories, getting my scripts, and then getting my sound bites programmed. Once all that's done, I have to set up my newscast, basically. So I'll have my sounder. It's called a news sounder, so it's like your little jingle, if you will, that like basically lets the audience know that it's the news is coming on. I'm sure you'll hear it on TV.
What's yours?
It's just a little song, basically like something like that. But you'll hear it even on TV, any type of radio. There's usually some type of little sounder. So that'll play, and then my intro goes over that, which I do use the same intro and other stuff every time. And then I have to program the weather also, so I have the weather in there, and then I have to put in my stories, but then I have a PSA or an ad in between, and I need to make sure that the right soundbite aligns with what my script says, which has also happened, because if you put in the wrong soundbite and you say, like I gave the example of the Halloween intro, but then they start talking about a murder that happened in Cleveland, it's not going to fit together, and it's going to be very confusing.
Right. Has that happened?
It's happened. It hasn't actually been me, but it also, some of the DJs have to put in the sound bites, so you'll give them, and I mean, it happens. They might put in N9211 instead of N9212, and that's a completely different thing. So It's a lot of attention to detail, and I mean, it happens. It's fine if it does, but
you just kind of like say afterward, like, oh, well, that was
basically I just say, pardon me, that was the wrong soundbite. Basically, that's what I've learned too, is when a mistake does happen, don't try to hide from it. Just acknowledge it, but also don't shut down. Like if I misread something, I don't stop and pause. I just go back and read it again and just keep reading. Like
the show must go on.
Like nothing happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And personally, I found that's the best way, and I think the audience too might not even notice it if you just keep going. And if something does happen, I'm just transparent. I just say, oh, I messed up. Sorry. Pardon me, guys. Whatever. And then go into the next story. Like, basically just letting them know. And I mean, I feel like the audience kind of is receptive to that too, because I don't think anyone's expecting me to be perfect. It's, I'm not on CNN or like it's okay.
Yeah,
and might even make you more relatable if he made a mistake. Like
Definitely.
It's cool. That I have to produce mine for each hour. So usually I'll choose my 7 or so stories for every hour. That way I can get my shows set up for each hour. So it's basically already done.
Nice.
And then once all that's done, the prep stuff, I'll still look for any new stories. Something big breaks, I want to make sure I get that on the news. If Ohio University announces X or Y, I want to make sure I get that out. Or if the sheriff's department releases a press release saying we're looking for this person, or we just arrested this person, or there's a lot of different things.
Sure.
But keep up on that. But once all that's in, it's really just a matter, after that, I usually drink my coffee and I'll eat my banana, and then I go on the air and do that for the next 3 or so hours, and then I have 2 p.m. newscasts that I pre-record. I'd like to start doing those live, because then I could use stories that come out throughout the day instead of just the stories that have already been out in the morning.
Sure.
So if I have enough in the morning, I will take stories that I haven't read that morning and use those for the PM newscast. If not, though, I just use the same stories from my 6:30 and my 7:30, because usually those are my leads. My most, what I consider to be the most important stories will go on those ones, and then I'll reread those on the PM. That's one thing I'm looking into doing if I hire an intern, is possibly getting them to maybe come in and do the PM newscasts in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
So then we can get more up-to-the-minute updates and more timely.
Real time.
More timely, that's what they call it in the journalism world. It's timely. So hopefully I can start doing that. And then also I want to get it to where instead of using ONN as my reporter for my, because I'll still probably anchor the show, but then I can say, here's Power 105's this person. And then my intern could be the one that comes in, actually is reporting the story and comes in and does that.
That would be
and hopefully we can start doing more local stuff too with that.
Because it's a local station, people want to hear it.
Yeah, and I mean, I do use news from around Ohio, and every once in a while I'll dip into, national politics and anything really big, and I do like a COVID-19 update for Athens County, that is, in like the state of Ohio. So I usually try to focus on Southeast Ohio, and if not, at least Ohio.
You said what was it? The election coverage was a big thing for you, right?
Yeah, so that was most of my stuff is scripted. Then, I have all my scripts. I have the same thing.
Yeah, you say you lay it out those three.
Yeah, and I mean the only thing I'm doing is reading my scripts basically, it is a lot easier said than done. Don't get me wrong, but the election stuff was the first time that I was doing coverage that was completely off the cup. So I had no script. I had a schedule basically to follow, which did help. So I knew CBS would cover up to this, and then once their break happened, and that was also where the board hopping came in handy because I already knew how to, turn off the CBS feed and then turn to my mic or turn to our audio vault, which plays our advertisements and stuff like that. So I was board hopping my own show, but yeah, the election coverage was really interesting because, like I said, it was no script and it was all off the cup, whatever. It was all me, pretty much. It was a lot of fun. It was kind of weird at first, but I got some pretty good feedback on it, and I think it went pretty well, and it was really good experience. So now I do feel like if I needed to do something like that again, I would be more comfortable. And I still kind of tried to stay in the lines as far as like a format. Like I would lead in with like a similar thing every time, and then we had a sponsor, so I'd say our sponsor. But yeah, that was really
intense.
It is, and you have a 2-minute block to fill, and 2 minutes doesn't seem like a lot until you're watching the clock and talking to a live audience, and you're trying to fill this time, but also stay interesting and not repeat yourself. So, I was saying Donald Trump has the lead in Ohio. Here's the numbers. Athens County came out with their numbers.
Yeah.
Here's some of those. So I mean, I wasn't doing any analysis, thankfully.
Right.
That's a lot harder than simply doing the news and basically telling people, here are some results, here's what's happening. But then I would, go back into the national. Joe Biden has how many electoral votes? Trump has this. Here's the difference. Here are some close states. And now we're going to send it back to CBS. And then they would go for another 20 or so minutes. And then my 2 minutes would be up again.
Yeah. That's pretty cool, actually.
So then, I'd say, we just got the Board of Election results from Athens County. So here are some of those races for you. Here are some of our results from Hocking County. Yeah. And now we're going to take a look again at the national stage. And here's what's happening with that. And Trump won this state. Biden is projected to win this. Here's where we stand. And
So was that something that you're kind of looking forward to trying to do in the future? Well, I guess you say you're trying to go more for the sports route, right?
Yeah, I tend to want to. I mean, I am interested in politics, but I just tend to lean more towards sports because it's still serious, but I feel like it's a little bit more fun and laid back in a way.
What's the company that you would want to work for the most? Like, what would you want to be on, like ESPN and like?
My dream job would probably be for working for Fox Sports, either doing radio or being a part of their television broadcast, which a lot of the shows are both. So they are live on TV, but are also on Fox Sports Radio. Some are just radio. So that would probably be like my dream company to work for. Sure. ESPN as well, obviously, but Fox has kind of started to take over a little bit in that realm. I mean, ESPN is still kind of the best known, but Fox Sports has really started to expand and grow, and a lot of the talent from ESPN has moved over and stuff like that.
That's interesting. So I should buy some Fox stock?
their sports department has, I mean, if you would have done it 5 years ago, you would probably be really, because it's still actually a fairly new section of what is the overall company of Fox. But yeah, it's been growing really, really fast, while ESPN has kind of been struggling and downsizing a little bit, which, don't get me wrong, if ESPN call me tomorrow, I will be happy to accept a position. But
yeah, that's fair. That's interesting to hear a little bit of that insight from what's going on with those bigger companies in that. So I did want to ask, what were some of your favorite stories that you've done, though? Like, most interesting, funny, kind of, maybe if there's any serious ones that were, like, really dramatic or anything?
So I always like the stories that seem like it's actually like a comedy show almost, but it's a legitimate story. Like, I think I did one about a man who was arrested for getting in a fight with his mom and like trying to attack her with a frying pan, or I can't think of the exact details, but it was something along those lines. Or some guy that bit off his girlfriend's toe in an altercation or something like that.
That's crazy.
So it's always fun to read those stories when you even reading it, you're like, I don't even know if like this doesn't sound real, but it has to be real, and I hope it's real because I'm gonna look really bad if it's not. But and I'm sure the audience feels the same way. But those stories are always fun to read. As immature as it might sound, any story with, I don't know, the word genitals or penis or something like that is always, I always get a good chuckle out of it. I like to, I don't take myself too seriously. So when I'm reading the story, it's fun or funny kind of to try to stay like super serious while like just say that as another word, but then you get off the air and the DJ will be like, something like that.
Penis or
exactly. So
that's hilarious. That's fun.
I read one story about some lake in South Dakota that was named like Minnecaca Lake or something like that. And
I would have so much fun.
Just stuff like that is always fun, and it kind of keeps it more light versus what a lot of the news is.
Say mini caca.
It was don't quote me on it.
That's better than a big caca,
Yeah,
a large
giant caca. But
it's less
a lot of the stuff like that is fun. I feel like I've not broken, but the local publications will put out their stories early in the morning at like 4-ish. Mm-hmm. So I've been lucky to be able to kind of report on some of those before a lot of people get to read the paper. Yeah. So I've a couple local stories I've kind of been able to break, and I've heard a couple people say like, I did not know about that until you came on and said it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
A couple of the sheriff's press releases that get emailed directly to me, I've been able to do that. So I always enjoy kind of, and I guess that's just a journalist thing in a way, but kind of getting a jump on a story.
Of course,
and kind of being the first one there, Have you ever
seen Nightcrawler before?
I have.
Jake Gyllenhaal?
Yeah, that's a really good movie.
It's intense for sure.
Yeah, my job really isn't as intense as that, I have to admit, but still, it is a great movie. Right. It is a great movie.
Yeah, but I don't know. I feel like there's probably some things you could relate. Like you said, like being the first to a scene. And
exactly.
And like being able to break that, which is pretty cool. And there was probably a lot of overlapping vocab that you like understood that you were like, oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then some of the serious stuff, it is hard. Some of the stories, when you're reading about minors being sexually abused or a child getting murdered, and there's a lot of really
heavy
stuff that you have to read, and I'm not going to not report on it because it's not the best thing to hear, because it's still news, and
right.
you know, that's a reality of the business pretty much.
Part of the world.
But those stories are kind of tough to read sometimes because you kind of have to watch your delivery on those too, because you don't want to sound like too upbeat and excited about really sad stuff. So those are kind of a little bit more difficult, but I try to just keep it professional, and it's part of the job, I guess. And
right, yeah.
It sucks that stuff like that happens in the world, but people have the right to know about that stuff when it happens. So.
Hey, well, yeah, I mean, I appreciate you coming out here to talk about it. I just want to say, though, like, going into the news and stuff, everybody says that media controls the world. So, like, you gotta play, you gotta play your cards right. I don't want you to start making my life crazy, all right?
Well, it's really funny you say that, because a lot of the times I'll tell random people that I'm either waiting on or I just whatever. I'm in journalism, and everyone likes to make the joke like, "Oh, do you report on real news or fake news?" And
yeah.
I'm like,
a little bit of both,
if a story ends up on something that I trust and I think it's legit and I misreport it, maybe it is fake news, but I'm not out there trying actively to sway the audience into believing this conspiracy or this political thing. I really try to just say, here is facts. What is happening.
These are the stories that are
That's it. I mean, some people could say, oh, well, you read stories about Trump and how his legal team is failing all the time, but that's because that's what's happening. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not saying you should hate Trump or I hate Trump. I don't reveal those type of biases. On a personal level, I may, but not professionally. So if something happens, it's not fake news just because you think that that's not the agenda you want to see.
Right.
It's not fake news.
It doesn't reaffirm your beliefs.
Yeah, if it doesn't reaffirm your beliefs, that doesn't make it fake news. And maybe the media does control the world. I find that hard to believe. Some people would say the liberal media and is controlled in this conspiracy, but I kind of find it funny, especially now that I'm in the business. I'm like, yeah, I'm totally being controlled by some liberal conspiracy, and it's trickling down to me, and it's one of those things I kind of just laugh about and laugh. I never get offended or anything, but I'm just like, oh yeah, I try to do the real news, but like I said, I'm sure if I do this for long enough, there will be a story that might get misreported, and I might report on it too.
But that's just growing pains.
It's just the nature of it. Something gets misreported on one of the ONN outlets that I use, and then I say it on the air, and
it's not your fault.
I'll go back on and say, hey, I misreported this. This is what actually happened. Pardon me. It's okay.
That's actually really nice to hear, though. Somebody that's from the industry that.
Yeah, I mean.
Like you said,
it's never going to be perfect, but especially being in journalism, I've never seen even one of my classmates, peers, people actively trying to go out and report things that are not true. I've personally never once seen that, because for one, that is like the cornerstone of what you're doing. Any company you work for, if you are found to actually knowingly report false information, you're pretty much going to get fired. Right. So even if you just look at it from a common sense standpoint, I don't know what reporter or news person out there would knowingly do that, knowing that there's a good chance they're going to lose their job. There is a difference between analysts as well. Analysts can say any opinions they want, and if you can't distinguish between that and news, you might be confused by that, but that's not the actual person or the even publication's fault. Right. An analyst gives opinions. That is their job. Right. My job is to give people the news, so I don't go into analysis. But maybe if there was a political analyst show on Power 105, and they were anti-Trump or even pro-Trump, anti-Biden. That doesn't mean that my news all of a sudden is fake news.
Right.
That is because they're giving you their analysis of it. I'm just saying, here's what happened.
Yeah.
Trump's legal team is failing in their lawsuits in Pennsylvania. That's not anti-Trump. That is what's happening.
Right.
You know, I'm sure when Biden takes office, I will be the first one to report on any of his failings or good deeds.
True.
I don't really care either way. You know, if it's newsworthy, I try my best to report on it, and then hope that the audience can use that to formulate their own opinion. So
be the analyst. That's
exactly. No, I mean that's really the point, is to make people think about these things so they can in turn form their own opinions and So
well, like I said, it's kind of nice to hear that side of things, and I don't know.
It's an interesting field, though. It's very competitive too. I will say that.
Really?
I feel like I have a good place to get my foot in the door and get my feet wet.
News director experience right off the bat.
But even with that being said, it's really, really competitive industry. So I'm always trying to get better and just keep working at it, and you know, building my resume and stuff is important, but I do know that there's a lot of people out there that are going to want the same jobs that I want, so we'll see how it goes.
Well, I wish you best of luck in your endeavors.
Appreciate it, buddy.
Alright, man, I appreciate it. Thanks again for coming out.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, it was kind of great to hear that he wasn't all about. It was cool to hear him actually address like fake news. I think from that perspective, from somebody who's in the industry, he's like, bro, I'm just trying to do my job. Like, I'm not, you know, I read what they give me, and that was kind of nice to hear, I think, and an interesting look at how everything works. And he gave a lot of great insight, which I love a lot about that conversation. But you know, right now it's December. It's, you know, coming towards the end of the month, and I know there's a lot of controversy about seeing people you love and visiting family and all that stuff, but you know, I just want to hope everybody feels comfy. You know, I think that's the main thing. It starts getting cold. Like right now I'm back at my parents', and it's, you know, with my parents' house. You know, I don't want to live here, that's for sure, but there's this nostalgic feeling of being comfy. And you know, they have a fireplace. I don't have a fire. I don't know if you have a fireplace. I don't have a fireplace, and so that's always a great benefit, and easy to get warm and cozy too. So I hope you find a place to be warm and cozy too, or think of the most comfortable place you've ever been that's just relaxing, and you know, see if you can just go there in your mind if you can't go there in real life. So I hope everybody's doing all right. I hope you're staying safe and sassy and warm and cozy. And okay, I love you. Thank you for listening. Amen. Okay, bye. That's some Mark Maron shit if I ever heard it, that's for sure.